The rain was heavy that night, water leaked through the broken roof, drops fell into a metal bowl on the floor, ping, ping, ping. 12-year-old Caleb Carter lay on a thin mattress placed directly on the dirt floor, no bed frame, no fan, no light except a weak bulb hanging from a wire. Outside, sirens screamed. Inside, his stepmother screamed louder, "You are useless. Just like your mother." Caleb said nothing. He had learned that silence was safer. His father sat at a wooden table, drinking cheap beer, staring at nothing. Caleb held his stomach. He had not eaten since morning, but hunger was normal, pain was normal, being invisible was normal. That night, Caleb made a quiet promise. One day he would never live like this again. Caleb's classmates wore clean uniforms. They carried backpacks. They talked about math homework and school trips. Caleb carried bricks. At 13 years old, instead of school, he worked at a small mechanic yard. Grease covered his hands, oil covered his clothes. The other boys laughed at him. Look at Caleb. Too poor for school. He laughed with them, but inside, something burned. Every time he saw a businessman drive past in a clean suit, he stared, not with jealousy, with curiosity. How did he escape? He wondered. His stepmother, Linda, hated him. She never forgave him for existing. You eat too much. You breathe too loud. You remind me of your mother. Caleb learned to wake up before everyone. He cleaned the house. He washed dishes. He fetched water. Still, it was never enough. One night she threw his plate outside. You don't deserve this food. Caleb picked the plate from the dirt. He washed it quietly. He ate what remained, and something changed inside him. He stopped wishing for love. He started wishing for power. At the mechanic yard, there was one man who noticed him, Mr. Raymond, old, quiet, observant. One afternoon he asked, "Why do you work so hard, kid?" Caleb shrugged, "I don't want this life." Mr. Raymond studied him carefully. "You want more?" "Yes." "Then stop working like a worker. Start thinking like an owner." That sentence stayed in Caleb's mind like fire. While others rested, Caleb stayed late. He did not just fix cars. He studied customers. He watched how they spoke. He watched how they paid. He noticed something powerful. The owner made more money than all workers combined. Why? Because he owned the space. He owned the tools. He owned the system. Ownership. That word changed everything. At 16, Caleb saw his old classmates again. They were preparing for college. They wore clean clothes. One of them laughed, "Still fixing cars? That's your future." Caleb smiled calmly. Inside, the fire grew stronger. That night, he wrote something on a paper, "I will own a business before I turn 30. He folded the paper. He hid it under his mattress. At 18, Caleb noticed something smart. People in his neighborhood needed car repairs, but many could not afford shop prices, so he started something small, mobile repairs. He borrowed tools. He fixed cars in driveways. He charged less, but he worked fast, and he was honest. Word spread. One night, his father took his savings, all of it, used it for gambling. Caleb came home to empty drawer. He did not cry. He did not shout. He packed his small bag. He left. At 19, Caleb became homeless, but this time, he was not afraid. He had a skill, and he had a dream. Caleb had no home, no family support, no savings, but he had something stronger, a mindset, and in the next few years, that mindset would build a multi-million-dollar empire. But first, he would face his biggest test. At 19, Caleb was homeless, again, but this time was different. When he was 12, he was helpless. Now, he had skill, he had knowledge, he had hunger, not just hunger for food, hunger for freedom. He slept in an old customer's broken van parked behind a grocery store. The nights were cold, the seat was hard, but his mind was burning with plans. He whispered to himself in the dark, "I am not a victim. I am building." Caleb realized something important. Fixing cars one by one would keep him surviving, but owning a shop would change his life. He began saving aggressively. He ate once a day, peanut butter, bread, water. He worked from sunrise to midnight, mobile repairs, oil changes, brake pads, batteries. Within 10 months, he saved $18,000. It was the most money he had ever seen. He held the envelope in his hands, and he remembered the dirt floor. At 20 years old, Caleb rented a small abandoned garage on the edge of town. The paint was peeling, the door barely worked, but to him, it looked like a palace. He cleaned it himself, painted it himself, fixed the broken lights himself. Then he hung a simple sign, Carter Auto Solutions. The first week, no customers. The second week, 2 customers. The third week, a small line formed. Why? Because Caleb did something rare. He was honest. If a repair cost $80, he charged $80. If something didn't need fixing, he said so. People were shocked. Word spread. One afternoon, a wealthy businessman drove in with a black luxury SUV. The engine had a small issue. The man looked at Caleb and said, "You sure you can handle this?" Caleb looked calm. "Yes, sir." He worked carefully, focused, precise. He fixed the issue in 2 hours. The businessman asked, "How much?" Caleb gave a fair price. The man laughed. "That's too low." He paid double. Then he said something that changed everything. "You think bigger than this shop?" Caleb paused. "Yes." "Good. Call me next week." The businessman owned a fleet of delivery vans. He needed someone honest to maintain them. He gave Caleb a contract, monthly maintenance, guaranteed income. Caleb's hands shook when he signed. That contract doubled his monthly earnings overnight. Instead of buying a new car, he hired his first employee, a young man from the same slum he grew up in. People were shocked. "Why not enjoy your money?" they asked. Caleb answered, "I am building something bigger than comfort." The same classmates who once laughed at him, now needed jobs. They walked into his garage quietly. One of them said, "Bro, I heard you're doing well." Caleb smiled politely. "Yes." They asked for help. Internships.work, advice. Some were sincere, some were jealous. He could see it in their eyes. But Caleb stayed calm. He remembered something important. Success reveals people's true hearts. At 24, Caleb opened a second location, then a third. He rebranded Carter Fleet Auto Group. He added fleet services, car detailing, mobile emergency units, corporate contracts. He studied business at night online. He learned about systems, marketing, customer loyalty. He stopped working in the shop. He started managing. Then he started scaling. Money was no longer survival. It became strategy. One afternoon, a familiar face walked into his office. Linda, his stepmother. She looked older, tired, smaller. She stood in front of him silently. "I heard about you," she said softly. Caleb did not speak. She continued, "I was wrong. I was cruel. I was angry at life. And I took it out on you." Her voice broke. "I am sorry." The room was quiet. This was the moment he had imagined many times. Revenge, anger, but something inside him had changed. He said calmly, "I forgive you." Not for her, for himself. At 27, Caleb made the boldest move of his life. He pitched to investors, not for a small loan, for expansion nationwide, fleet technology, tracking systems, maintenance subscriptions, smart automation. Some investors laughed. From slums to CEO? Sure. But one believed him, because Caleb had numbers, discipline, vision. Within 3 years, Carter Fleet Auto Group expanded to 5 states, annual revenue crossed $18 million, and growing. At 29 years old, Caleb sat in his high-rise office overlooking the city skyline. He remembered the dirt floor, the rain, the hunger, the insults, and he whispered, "They said I was nothing." Now, he was on track to become one of the youngest multi-million-dollar business owners in his industry. But success brings new enemies. At 29 years old, Caleb Carter stood in front of a glass wall. Below him, the city moved like a living machine. Cars, buses, people, noise. 10 years ago, he slept on a dirt floor. Now he owned a multi-million-dollar company. Carter Fleet Auto Group operated in 5 states, hundreds of vehicles under contract, dozens of employees, investors calling daily, money flowing, respect growing. But success brings something nobody talks about, attention, and not all attention is good. At a business event in Chicago, Caleb overheard something. 2 men were talking quietly. "That's him. The slum kid. Yeah. Heard he got lucky. Let's see how long that lasts. Caleb did not react. He smiled politely when introduced, but he understood something clearly. Some people clap when you rise, some people wait for you to fall. 3 months later, a shocking email arrived. One of his regional managers, someone he trusted, had been stealing company funds, small amounts. Over time, it added up to $600,000. Caleb sat silently in his office. He remembered something Mr. Raymond once told him: success tests your heart. He could hide it, protect the company image, or expose it and risk bad press. He chose truth. He fired the manager, reported it legally, made a public statement. Transparency over pride. Investors were nervous, but something surprising happened. Customers respected him more, because he chose integrity over ego. The news spread online. Headlines: fast-rising CEO faces internal scandal. Comment sections exploded. Some supported him, some attacked him, some said, "See? People like him can't handle power." Caleb felt anger rising inside him, but instead of fighting online, he focused on strengthening his systems. Better audits, better leadership training, better structure. He turned crisis into improvement. One evening, an old classmate, Darren, visited him privately. Darren had once mocked him for working in Greece. Now he said, "Bro, you owe me. We grew up together." Caleb stayed calm. "I don't owe you success. I worked for it." Darren's smile faded. "You think you're better than us now?" Caleb replied quietly, "No. I just refuse to stay where I started." Jealousy can turn dangerous. Weeks later, rumors began spreading, false accusations, fake stories. But Caleb had built something stronger than rumors. He had built reputation. Truth always stands longer than lies. The same broken streets, the same small houses, the same dirt floors. Children were playing outside barefoot. He saw himself in them. That day, he made a decision bigger than money. He launched the Carter Skills Academy, free technical training for underprivileged youth, auto mechanics, business basics, financial literacy. He hired mentors, bought tools, built classrooms. Because he understood something deeply: education is power, and skill is freedom. At 32 years old, Caleb reviewed his company valuation report. Net worth, $24 million. He stared at the number quietly. He remembered eating peanut butter once a day. He remembered the plate thrown into dirt. He remembered sleeping in a van. Tears filled his eyes. Not because of the money, because he survived. Because he kept going, because he refused to let pain define him. One afternoon, his father walked into his office, older, weaker, regretful. "I heard you did well," his father said quietly. Caleb felt years of pain rise up. "You took everything from me," Caleb said. His father nodded. "I know. And I cannot undo it." Silence filled the room. Then Caleb said something powerful. "You did not give me love. But you gave me pain. And pain pushed me." He handed his father an envelope. Not revenge, not anger, a small house deed. "I forgive you. But I will never live that life again." Forgiveness freed him completely. At a national business conference, Caleb was invited to speak. Thousands watched. He stood on stage, bright lights, cameras. He began, "I did not become successful because I was lucky. I became successful because I refused to stay small." He continued, "Your start does not decide your finish. Your mindset does." The crowd stood up, applause thundered. But the real victory, he had broken the cycle. No more dirt floors, no more hunger, no more shame. Final life lesson: listen carefully. Your background is not your prison. Your pain can become your fuel. People will doubt you. People will mock you. Some will envy you. Some will betray you. But discipline beats talent. Integrity beats shortcuts. Consistency beats luck. Caleb did not win because he was special. He won because he refused to quit. He refused to blame. He refused to stay small. And you can do the same, no matter where you start, no matter what you lack. Start with what you have. Build slowly. Stay honest. Stay hungry. Stay focused. Because one day, the boy from the dirt floor might be you. Kindly like, comment and subscribe for more life lesson that heals and inspire.